Show cause June 11th, 2024 at 10. All right, we apparently, so they need breakout rooms.
I think that this one is supposed to be. From what I can tell, it is.
Okay. They don't need breakout rooms.
I'm not, they did not indicate that they need breakout rooms.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Miss McDuffie. I'm sorry.
May I ask, Ms. Moeller, I don't know if we need a breakout or not. Could you please advise on the status of Mr. Brown for the hearing that was supposed to be scheduled for about an hour?
I was just going to reach out to him. I had been communicating
He's
with
here.
Mr. Brown.
He's here.
Okay.
Okay, is he there with his attorney? He did say his retained attorney was going to be there today.
I don't know. He's on Zoom. No, he's not. Is he here with counsel?
I have not seen any other counsel sign in, Your Honor.
Hold on one
He
second,
keeps signing
please.
in and out.
So Miss Mueller, he's showing up in the Zoom environment, so we don't see any attorneys who have signed into the Zoom environment also, and he keeps signing in and out. So we're gonna let him in now. Do you need to speak with him?
Yes, I believe I do one more time. He told me at 4:45 last evening that his lawyer was going to be representing him and that he did not need our office to represent him today.
Please let him.
If, Ms. Moeller, if he is not going to admit to the violation, I have to phone the witnesses that are subpoenaed for today. So just send me a Teams or something to let me know.
Witnesses are already here.
Which would,
Carol from EverHealth.
oh, they logged in?
Correct.
Okay. They told me they weren't going to do that, so I had to give them a call in advance.
That's
Okay.
the only one,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Mr. Brown, can you please connect your audio? Like he can't hear me.
No, I know, but I'd send him a message. I'm not sure if you can see the chat. He's moving, so maybe he's taking it. There we go.
Mr. Brown, can you unmute your device, sir? Mr. Brown, can you unmute your device, sir?
Yes.
Mr. Brown, the public defender's office is telling us that you said you were going to have private counsel. Are you having private counsel today or no?
Yes, Mr. Weiner should be calling in.
He has not done so.
Yes, I just got off the phone with him. I just got off the phone with him, ma'am.
I did reach out to him.
He's not here.
And just so you know, so the court is also aware, I reached out to Mr. Weiner last week. He was either Friday or over the weekend, and let him know that this hearing was scheduled for this date and time, and that if he was planning to appear, he needed to file an appearance, a substitution with the court in our office, so that I would know that, number one, and so that he could get any information he needed for this hearing. I did not receive any response at all to that.
He was in trial. He was in trial. I'm waiting on, he should be zooming. I just got off the phone with him.
I did hear you say that about time, sir.
Pardon me?
I heard you say that 3 times already.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
All right, one moment.
I don't know if while we're waiting, I do have maybe one piece of information that I don't know if the court knows, if maybe we could have just a quick breakout, or if I could quickly approach.
You may.
Oh man.
All right, I have not formally called the Anthony Brown matter yet, but Mr. Brown, I want you to be aware that at this point you have about 4 minutes before I call this case, and we're going to proceed with it. Your attorney, if you had one, should have been informed that it was to start at 11 a.m. It is now 11:17. So you had about 3 minutes to get him on the phone.
Okay. Oh, okay. Once.
Do you understand, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
All
I'm
right.
about to. Okay.
I'm gonna hold off calling that for about 3 more minutes. You need
Okay.
to get him here. Are we gonna call her?
You want me to
Your Honor, can I make that call I need to make as well, or are you getting ready to call another matter?
You can make that call
Okay,
now.
thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, we can hear you, sir, just so you know.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, man. I'm just going through it. Don't even know.
I think that's one for it. All right, the court is going to call the cases of Mr. Osmond Abdel Mahassan Osmond, 21W003412 B, 22W003532R, 23W00708R, 23W002R, 23W00385 and 22S00833.
Rachel McDuffie for the people.
Paul Barnett on behalf of the township.
Assistant Public Defender Davy Leba for Mr. Osmond on the 302R matter.
Thank you. In the 833 case, this is Mr. David Goldstein's case, and he was advised of this court date when he was present last time. And we've called him and he has not shown as of yet. In addition to that, Mr. Abdelhamasan was advised and told and ordered to be here in person if he was not in custody, and he is not. Therefore, bench warranty.
This is Abdul Mohsen Osman.
I know who you are, sir. You were told to be
Yes,
here.
and no, I get the message that from the court, it says the court in Zoom.
Okay. Well, I'm telling you what I told you, and you're not here. Bench warrant to issue.
Can I come there in like 30 minutes?
No, you cannot.
I wasn't know honor is gonna be in person.
He was, because he got arrested. Bench warrant to issue in the amount of $20,000, 10%. In the other matters, these appear to be civil infractions. They will just tag along as defendant failed to appear in person. Or you need to turn yourself into Washington County Jail. Nope. You won't. Right, the court will call the matter of the state of Michigan versus Anthony Brown, 23 FB 1157.
APA Rachel McDuffie for the people.
Assistant Public Defender Allison Muller here on behalf of Anthony Brown. Mr. Brown, can you state your name for the record?
Mr. Brown, please unmute your device.
Anthony Brown.
Mr. Brown, your who you say is retained counsel has not shown. It is now 11:25. We will be proceeding with this matter. Do you need time to speak with Ms. Muller?
No, just
Then you're ready to proceed with the hearing, sir?
yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. You may call your first witness, Ms. McDuffie.
Thank you, Your Honor. I want to first call Ms. Carol Eisthorpe. I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly, who is present from AdverHealth.
Good morning, Carol Easthorpe from AverHealth.
Thank you, ma'am. Are you able to show your screen?
Yes, I'm doing it right now. Sorry. There we go.
Thank you. Could you please raise your right hand to be sworn?
Okay.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may proceed.
And thank you, Your Honor. And I also just want to clarify for the record, we are here today with the hearing regarding 2 positive ETG tests for Mr. Brown. The first is was collected on February 11th of 2024. And the second was a collection sample date of February 17th of 2024. Is that what the court has as well?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you so much. And I believe there are confirmations, at least there's a confirmation for the first. I don't believe there is one for the second positive result.
Correct.
Okay, thanks so much. So Ms. Eisthorpe, thank you for joining us today. And I wanted to first just ask you, what is your role?
I'm the area manager for AverHealth in the Detroit, Michigan area.
Okay, and just briefly, AverHealth is what sort of organization?
We're a drug and alcohol testing facility.
Okay, so I just want to ask you sort of some foundational questions about how things go when it comes to testing for these substances. So when someone is ordered to come in and test, can you just tell me generally what that process looks like in terms of how you verify they are who they say they are, what actually they do in terms of how they monitor it when they're providing samples?
Sure. So everyone that tests with us is given a PIN number, and they get called every day, whether they have to come in and test or not. It lets them know. They'll come into the facility. We verify them by their PIN number, and then their actual picture will come up on the screen. So there's another second verification. And then we also ask them their last name and date of birth. And then after that, we proceed with the testing and their observed testing. And the males will go in with the males. And at that time, they're asked to wash their hands. They're asked to roll their sleeves up to their elbows. They're asked to lift their shirt up to their navel. And also the males have to pull down their pants to mid-thigh. At that time, we then proceed to give them the vial to produce the sample. Once they produce the sample, they give it back to us. We then confirm with them the name that's on the vial. We do a specimen seal that's also initialed by the client with the date. And then we again confirm by showing the patient the vial to make sure that they understand that it's theirs. And then they confirm or deny.
I was born zeros.
If you do that one more time, sir, you're going to be held in contempt of court. Do you understand?
Yeah, I'm just sick and okay.
Ms. Muller, do you need to speak with your client?
Your Honor, if I could, very briefly in a breakout room, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Eisthorpe. We just have to pause for a moment. Sorry about that.
Okay.
All right, we'll be on a brief break until they return from the breakout room, ma'am, okay? And
Okay.
Thank you. All right, we are back on the record on the state of Michigan versus Anthony Brown, 23 FB 1157. You do not need to place your appearances back on. All right, are we ready to continue, Ms. Muller?
We are, Your Honor. Thank you for allowing us the breakout room.
Thank you. All right, Ms. McDuffie, you may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Lysthorpe, you had just told us about the process for, I think, chain of custody, quality control there, the observation and everything else. I just wanted to also ask you, how is it that a client is notified of any positive results for those tests?
The results go directly to the court. So normally, if they have a caseworker or a probation officer, they are notified. We do not notify the client.
Okay. And do you have an approximate time span of how rapidly those results are reported?
It really all depends. It gets sent out daily. It gets sent out to our lab, which is in St. Louis. So depending on the day, if it's Friday, they won't receive it until Monday. So it's usually a 24 to 48 hour turnaround.
Okay. And what is the process for any sort of confirmation or follow-up analysis? Are they notified about that?
The probation officer or the caseworker would notify the client. If the client then wants to come in and confirm, they would be able to come in, confirm, tell us what date that they are inquiring about, and then we would go ahead and process it.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks so much.
Mhm.
So is there, now getting a little bit more to the specifics of this matter, are you familiar, number one, with the testing and reports for Mr. Brown on those two dates I mentioned, February 11th and 17th of this year?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so let me just ask you, generally, do you have any reason to doubt the accuracy of either one of those reports?
No.
Okay. And I'm going to ask Dr. Glenn some of these questions in a bit more detail, but as far as you know, do you have, well, let me ask you this. When somebody comes in for an ETG test, that's a urine test, right?
Correct.
So is there any other method of alcohol testing that you perform in addition to that or alternating with that, or is it strictly that ETG urine test?
He does perform a BAC, which is done by an alcohol monitor, which is that he blows into a straw into the alcohol monitor, and then we do the mouth alcohol at the time.
Okay. Is the alcohol monitor similar to the SoberLink device?
I'm not familiar with, there's different types. So it's a large machine that's actually a tabletop machine. So it would not be considered, so no, because that's a little too big.
Okay. So it's some sort of breath test for alcohol. Maybe
correct. You could compare it to what
data
the police carry. It's similar to that.
Okay. Either a
Just
data
larger in
master
scale.
machine or a PBT or something like that.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. And so so those are results that you receive immediate, is that immediately before or following the ETG?
It is immediately. They usually do the BAC prior to going into the collection room. So it's immediate. It will show up right away if they are positive or negative.
Okay. And do you have any knowledge of those types of results for Mr. Brown on these two dates?
Not on those two dates.
Okay. Do you have any, and again, I will also ask Dr. Glenn about this too. Do you have any knowledge of any sort of differences one might see between, let's say, the sensitivity of that alcohol monitor, that breath test versus the urine test? Is any one of those more sort of reliable or sensitive than the other?
No, they're both accurate.
Okay.
I would not, I mean, the ETG, you're going back, you're actually utilizing the urine to receive the results. So it's not an immediate.
Okay.
And Dr. Glenn will be able to go in further detail of the ETG.
I think, let's see here. I think that's all I have, unless counsel or the court has any further questions for Ms. Iceland.
Well, Ms. Moeller gets to go first. Ms. Moeller, your witness.
Thank you. And your last name is Ms. Aesthorpe. Am I saying that right?
Ace Thorpe.
Aesthorpe. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Hi, Ms. Aesthorpe.
Sorry.
So I just have a few questions.
Sure.
I think you explained the process pretty well, what you do there at Avera Health. Did you personally, witness the testing of Mr. Brown on either the February 11th date or the 17th?
No, I do not work at this, the location.
Okay, so when you're speaking, it's just generally to how the testing procedure should work.
Correct. And as well as the record keeper.
Okay. And do you, at the different facilities, the person who's doing the test, do they have some kind of checklist where they can sign off that they've completed each step that's part of the testing process?
They have extensive training via online, and also we have trainers that come in and train them, and also the supervisors have a hand in training them that have all been trained properly. So we do have a list in the lavatories, the collection room is what we call it, that actually states what you need to do. So if there's any time that the clients don't want to follow procedures, we can refer to the wall and it shows you what they need to do as far as wash their hands, pull up their shirt, their sleeves. So all of that is readily available for the client to see.
Okay, so there's like something on the wall where the client can see it, the tester can see it, but not like a checklist where they have to initial this step was taken.
No.
Something like that.
No.
Okay. And you said your facilities use both the breath monitor system and the ETG testing?
Correct. It is whatever the courts would like at the time,
Okay.
whatever they order.
So for an individual like Mr. Brown, for example, would it be that some days he only does the breath monitor and not the ETG, or is he doing both every time that he's tested?
He is doing both every time that he is tested.
Okay. And you said you weren't aware, right, that of Mr. Brown's results on the breath monitor for the 2 days in question?
I'm not, he was negative.
Negative. Okay. So no alcohol was detected by the breath monitor.
No mouth alcohol, correct.
Okay. And it looked like the 11th of February, the first positive ETG was a Sunday, and then the 17th was a Saturday. Do you think that I don't believe a confirmation test was done for the 17th. Would those dates have affected the ability to be able to get a confirmation of the ETG?
No, we keep the samples for 30 to 60 days, but also depending on the court, we can keep them longer at the time. So they have plenty of time after the results are given to the court to notify the client and they can come back in.
Okay. Do you, when you do test individuals, do you make sure that you have a kind of an updated list if they're on any medications? Is that something that's asked each time they test?
It's not asked every time they come in. Again, that is court specific. They are required to bring it in if they do have them, and they are notified at the beginning of testing as well as what the paperwork states.
Okay. In your experience, are you aware of medications, or are there medications that could affect alcohol readings either on the breath monitor or the ETG?
That would definitely be something that you would need to further explore with Dr. Glenn.
Okay, and this might be something to explore further with him as well, but do you know of any studies or organizations that have said that ETG testing is almost like hypersensitive? Are you aware of?
Again, that would be something. I am not physically aware of anything of that nature.
Okay. I think those are all the questions I have. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
And I don't know if you know the answers to them or not. If you don't, just tell me you don't.
Okay.
But do you know what the various tests measure? For instance, do you know, well, we know they both measure alcohol. Do you know the time frames within which they measure for, is what I'm asking.
Oh, that would be something for Dr. Glenn as far as the ETG goes. There
Okay.
is a time parameter, but that would be something she would be able to go into great detail with.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And you indicated that do they sign a contract when they come to your facility to begin testing there?
Yes, I know I'm not sure if he did online. We do have online availabilities to sign. I'm seeing if he did the paper or not, because it is all on their phone. So some don't have the ability. So I'm looking to see if he did it on phone or on paperwork.
But
See.
which way he did it?
He did, yes, he did sign.
Okay.
Okay, yes,
And-
he did. Yes.
And as a part of that, he is advised that he needs to provide any updated prescriptions to your organization upon those changing.
They are informed when they first come in. We have a set schedule that says, are you on any medications? And that's when they're asked.
When you say a set schedule, what do you mean by that?
It's in each profile as we pull up the client. So each client has a profile. So when we scan them in, it comes up on the screen that has their information.
And each client's profile is created by someone in your organization?
Yes, or the courts themselves. The courts can create the profiles as well. We have both.
And are those questions asked when the individual initially comes into your program? Into your
If the court
testing?
requires, yes, if it's part of what the court requires, we do.
Is that a part of what was required for Mr. Brown?
I'd have to go into yours. I do not see it on your profile.
So he doesn't have any
However,
medications? He doesn't have any medications
I
on
do
his
not.
profile? He
I do
doesn't
not see
have
any.
them because they were not reported, or he doesn't have them because it wasn't asked?
I don't know if he was asked because I was not there.
I see.
So I can't
Answer that.
comment on that because I wasn't at the facility. So
Now, you indicated that you're answering these questions because you're the record keeper for the organization. Is that correct?
I'm the area manager, which I would be the record keeper for this location.
Ms. McDuffie, questions from you based on my questions? Or Ms. Mollers, for that matter?
Just that when it comes to the court specifically ordering, for example, those sorts of questions to be asked,
Mhm.
do you receive is in the information that you receive with the testing order, is that the source? So would that be something that would have needed to be explicitly spelled out? Or is
It
that a
actually,
general-
when AverHealth sets up the accounts, they ask the questions that they want the courts to ask.
Can you
So
explain it a little bit more? Yeah.
yes, I was just gonna say, so we set up accounts based off of the courts. So when we are putting everybody's information in, including probation officers, judges, we then ask them what they would like added, included. Some like AM only PBTs. Some require, if they come in the evening, that you would have to perform an ETG. All of that is done directly with the setup team, basically.
So in this, go ahead, Ms. McDuffie.
No, go ahead, Ron.
In this particular case, well, let me strike that. Do you sometimes have individuals who walk in who want to have testing done with your agency because they are not near enough to the courts that are ordering them to be a part of their process?
Yes, we have walk-ins, and if it's required by a court, we have them sign a release of confidential information to be able to provide the specific court with that information.
And you keep mentioning that the courts are who you talk to, but in some cases, do you actually speak directly with the testing agency from that jurisdiction?
No.
Well, in this
You mean
case,
outside, not our own? No, we don't speak to another agency.
in this particular case, does it show who you contacted from this court?
No, this isn't old. I don't have that information. That would be something that I would have to look up and get in. I just have his information. I would have to actually look it up and find out with our management team that handles that process.
One moment. All right. I believe that this occurred at the circuit court level initially. All right. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay.
Anything further from you, Miss McDuffie?
Yes, so just to clarify everything we just discussed, Ms. Asthorpe, I'm sorry I haven't saying your name wrong for the rest of this hearing.
That's okay.
So for this case, would you have basically contacted our court's probation, spoken with an agent there to review all of the terms and conditions for Mr. Brown's testing, essentially to set up his profile? Is that?
I'm actually looking in to see who actually sent the information. So
Okay.
It looks like Miss Straub is the one that initially put the information in.
Okay. All right.
Thank you so much. No further questions.
Anything further from you, Miss Muller?
Nothing further. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. May this witness be excused.
Yes, Your Honor, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Miss Astor.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You may call your next witness.
The people will call Dr. Michelle Glenn.
Dr. Glenn, please raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may lower your hand. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Glenn, pardon me. Can you please just give us a description of what your role is?
I am a toxicologist with EverHealth. Until recently, I was the laboratory director. But as of about 3 months ago, we hired a new laboratory director because I now live in Michigan, where the laboratory is in St. Louis. So I am a staff toxicologist with the company.
Gotcha. Okay. And let me ask, we're going to get a little bit more detailed here into some of the science of things so we can sort of understand. So first, just generally, what does an ETG urine test measure? What exactly does that pick up, or I want to get into what these results mean.
ETG stands for ethyl glucuronide, and it is a metabolite of ethanol. There's also on one of the reports a compound called ETS, which is ethyl sulfate, which is another metabolite of ethanol. So when you drink ethanol, which is the alcohol in alcoholic beverages, your body converts some of that to ETG and ETS, which are then excreted in the urine. So when you measure ETG and ETS in the urine, it's evidence of ingestion of alcohol by the person whose sample you've collected.
And do you have knowledge of any other substances besides ethanol that would produce those metabolites in urine?
The confirmed ETG and ETS metabolites are only can only be produced by ethanol in the liver.
Okay. And now when it comes to that test, and I'll get into the actual, I'm sorry, let me just pause for a second. Can I confirm that the court and defense counsel, because we're getting ready to get into the reports, has a copy of both of the reports for Mr. Brown for this case? There should be a confirmation lab for the February 11th test and the original lab result from the February 17th. Does everybody have those two reports?
I'm looking one moment.
Okay.
Oh, I think I have them.
I believe I don't have the 17th result. I have the confirmation from the 11th, Miss McDuffie.
I don't think I have either.
Okay, I'll send a copy around to everyone right now.
Can you please send them directly to me and CC Miss Muller? That way it doesn't have to go through Miss Ball.
And Dr. Glenn, you have those handy as well.
I do. I have them up on my computer screen in front of me.
Okay, great. It is just going to take us about 2 minutes because when we email things, they have to kind of scan for viruses. But as soon as I can hit send on these. So while these are sending, before I get into the details of those actual reports, so we just discussed that there are really no other substances that could produce a positive ETG result. I want to ask about timeframes. So when somebody does a urine test and it shows up as a positive, what indication does that give in terms of how long ago it was possible for that person to have consumed alcohol, if that makes sense?
Yes. So the window of detection for ETG in urine is up to 3 days, could be less than 3 days. It depends on how much alcohol they drank. So more will take longer to clear. So if you had, quite a bit of alcohol, you might be able to detect ETG for up to 3 days because there would be a lot of it in your samples. If they only had a little bit, maybe 1 day. But it's entirely possible, since the urine collects compounds that have left the body that are going to be excreted, that you could have consumed alcohol yesterday, say, or the day before. And so you might give a negative breath or even a blood test today, but you would still have ETG in your urine because that reflects the consumption the day before that.
And I want to just ask a little bit more about that. So can you explain why a breath test would potentially produce a 0 result when an ETG would not? What is it about the measurement of between those two methods that would be different?
Because different matrices or different fluids, tissues that you're testing have different windows of detection. They cover different time frames. So if you drink alcohol right now, you'll have alcohol in your breath as soon as it's absorbed into your blood, which would probably be within, several minutes. So your breath will be positive until from the time you started drinking until the time the alcohol is cleared from your blood, which could take up from, a couple hours to several hours, depending on how much you've drunk. If you were to take a blood test at the same time, the blood test would also show the alcohol in your blood, but it takes a little bit for it to get into the urine. And then at some point, all the alcohol will be out of your breath and out of your blood, and it might be still in your urine. So you could measure it in urine and not in breath or blood. You can also, and in here, we're actually not looking at alcohol itself. We're looking at the metabolite ETG, which takes even longer to clear. So you could see ETG in the system, or in the urine, even after the alcohol itself is gone. And to carry that even further, even though in this case, we're not talking about ethanol. If you were to test hair, you can test drugs. You'll see drugs in hair sometimes for days, weeks, or months after the drug has been used. So hair is often used to show use in the past. So different body fluids and tissues will reflect drug use at different times. So it's common actually to be positive, say in urine, but be negative in oral fluid or in breath or in blood.
Thank you. And I trust that everybody has received those reports.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I want to take a look first at the report, the first report, which is the confirmation report of the February 11th, 2024 ETG. And I want to first ask, I'm trying to put this in super duper layman's terms so that I can understand it and of course everybody else can too. The nanograms per milliliter that are being measured, can you explain what the levels, the cutoff, and what do those columns mean?
So the level in the report is just the amount we measured in the sample. So in the confirmation result, we have measured 1,656 nanograms per milliliter. That's just the amount in urine. The cutoff is 300, meaning anything below 300 would be reported as negative. Anything above 300 is reported as positive. The ULOL means upper limit of linearity. That's basically the highest number we'll report. So 25,000 is the highest number. So if we were to measure something like 30,000, it would just be reported as greater than 25,000 because the assay it's only calibrated up to 25,000. So anything above that would just be reported as greater than that. So in this case, the sample was screened initially by a test method called immunoassay, and it gave a level of 1340, and that immunoassay is a different technique, and that gives you actually like a semi-quantitative result. But for the immunoassay, the cutoff is 500, right? So anything above 500 will be reported as positive, and in this case, it's screened at 1340, so that was reported as positive. Then another aliquot of the sample, or another portion of the sample, was taken to be confirmed by the testing method called LC-MS-MS, and that's the very specific and sensitive method that gives us the numbers for each the ETG and ETS itself in urine. So we see that both of those were positive by LC-MS-MS, ETG at 1656 and ETS at 852. So they're both present there. It indicates exposure to alcohol.
And can you explain what is the difference between ETG 500, ETG alone, and ETS?
ETG 500 is the name of the immunoassay screening test. So that when the sample comes in, a portion of it is screened by immunoassay, and that gives us a yes or no, a positive or negative answer to different drugs. So that's the first thing that happens to the sample. The screen for ETG is called ETG 500 because the cutoff is 500. Then if it's positive, another new portion of the sample can be taken to be confirmed by LC-MS-MS. So in this case, it was actually screened twice because it kind of reflexes for a second screen. So it got an initial screen, the screen was positive, it got a second screen. Those two results were both positive, so they were consistent with each other. And then a portion was taken to confirm by LC-MS-MS. So the confirmed LC-MS-MS results are just referred to as ETG and ETS. It prints out a little bit confusingly because you have screen, confirmation, another screen, and then another confirmation for ETS. But what you see here is that it screened positive for the presence of ETG, and then it was confirmed positive for the presence of ETG and also for ETS, because the screen just looks for ETG, it doesn't look for ETS. The confirmation looks for both. So you see several positive results here that are all consistent with each other printed on this report.
Thank you. Is there any sort of, and there may not be, is there any sort of correlation between the levels that are detected here and an estimated blood alcohol content number for someone? So for example, if any one of these numbers might be the potential equivalent of somebody having a 0.54, not 0.5, that would be fatal probably, but a 0.0, 5 or 8 or something like that. Is there any way to correlate these numbers to something like that?
No, you cannot tell a dose taken for ethanol or any other drug by a urine sample, because the concentration of the drug in the urine sample is going to vary with the creatinine level. Creatinine is a metabolic byproduct and basically just reflects how much water you've had to drink lately. So if you've, first thing in the morning when you have not emptied your bladder all night long because you were asleep, your urine's very concentrated and your creatinine levels might look very high. But halfway through the morning, when you've had 3 cups of coffee, now you've got a lot of water in your system, a urine sample might look very diluted. So the creatinine level, which reflects how much water's in your urine, that's going to go up and down all day long, depending on what you've had to eat or drink. So apparent drug levels can go up and down too. So there's no real way to correlate an amount of drug or alcohol taken with a level in urine.
Thank you. I want to make sure that we keep these in the context that they should be kept in. So now sort of a related question to that is when it comes to the difference between the level and the cutoff, and I'm referring specifically to the, multiplier or the percentage above that. So for example, this 1656, right, being several times over the cutoff detectable level, does that number give you any sort of assurance that there's no mistake, there's no false positive, there was definitely, alcohol detected here, that it's not even a close call. What did those numbers mean to you when they rise relatively higher or low from the cutoff?
Being a urine sample, whether they're higher or bigger or lesser than the cutoff, doesn't really tell us, again, anything about the dose. The fact that it was confirmed by LC-MS tells us that this compound that was detected, ETG, is definitely present. And the fact that ETS is there, which is another metabolite of alcohol, also above the cutoff, tells us that these compounds are here as a result of exposure to alcohol. It's not a false positive. Those two compounds are actually there in the urine sample.
Okay. So there's no there's no, if the numbers either hover close to the cutoff, or if they were almost, if they were sort of, you have the greater than, if they had kind of exceeded the maximum, that doesn't really speak to your confidence in the accuracy of the test itself.
I think you're asking about a couple of different things. I'm confident this test is accurate. Absolutely, I'm confident of that. I think what you might be getting at is, what do these numbers mean as far as where the alcohol came from, or something like that. We can't generally tell where a drug came from by a number on a lab report. There is sometimes contention that somebody was using mouthwash or using hand sanitizer, things like that, and that's why you have positive ETG and ETS levels. There's been research into that, and the only way you could get an ETG positive like this was if you were to use hand sanitizer like every 10 minutes all day long, and it'd have to be obviously hand sanitizer with alcohol in it, not some other kind. So if you did that every 10 minutes for 8 or 10 hours straight, you might be able to get ETG in your system approximating this number, perhaps. You're not going to get it by using mouthwash once or twice a day, or using, taking a medication like Benadryl or something that has alcohol in it. It would not come from that. So it's the strong possibility is that it was there as a result of ingestion of alcohol.
Okay, thank you. I was I was kind of thinking that, but so I appreciate that answer. And but I guess I was also sort of trying to figure out if there was any there's no doubt that you have, apparently. Basically, you have no reason to doubt these results. There's nothing about the levels themselves that, for if someone's level was 515, where the cutoff is 500, basically. I guess my question is, would you doubt the accuracy of those results?
I wouldn't doubt the accuracy of the results at all. No, the accuracy of the results, as far as this compound is there in the urine. It's been confirmed by LC-MS. I would not doubt that whatsoever. The question that might arise is, like, if you've only got, if your cutoff is 500 and you have 501, could it be from hand sanitizer, mouthwash? Those are the questions that would arise. And if it was the lower the number, the less you can rule out that it could have been from hand sanitizer. The higher the number, the less likely it is. But I would not doubt that the sample really contains ETG and not something else.
Gotcha. Okay. And one moment, I just have to look at some other questions we had. When a confirmation test is done, is there any sort of window of time where it must be done in order to get an accurate result? And I realize that you said it could measure alcohol as far back as 3 days, depending on how much was consumed. But if a confirmation test from that positive date were done, let's say can it be done 14 days later? Must it be done within 72 hours? What's that time frame?
Are you asking about how stable the sample is in storage? So if they collect the sample within, say, 3 days of the person drinking alcohol, then when the sample's collected, you would have ETG and ETS there. Then the sample is sent to us and we test it as soon as it gets here, and then we will test it for confirmation as soon as that's ordered. If you let the sample sit in storage, say, for a year, and you come back after a year and say, hey, will you test that for ETG? We can still test it, but you might have the possibility that some of the sample the drugs have degraded in storage. You might lose some of it in storage over time, so the results might not be as high as they were when the sample was fresh. But there's not, we can still run it. The interpretation might be just a little bit more uncertain.
And looking at this result, we see the collection date was February 11th and it was received on the 13th. Is that, when was the actual confirmation test run?
Well, we see that the confirmation was ordered on the 23rd, which means it would be probably put into a batch, as we call it, or grouped with other samples, run on the 24th, and then the data would have been generated over the 24th or 25th, and then reviewed before it was released. So within 4 days of the confirmation being ordered, it was reported. So it was, I could go back and look at the instrument data, which I haven't done, but it was would have been actually run sometime between the 23rd and the 27th.
Okay. And is that a typical sort of time frame?
Yes.
Okay. And then I think my last question is the validity rows that we see under the red alcohol rows that are entered here. Can you just, I know you've addressed sort of the creatinine and things before, but can you just address what the validity rows mean in terms of this result that we have?
Yes, we're required by our accrediting bodies to test all samples for some kind of validity, which basically means that they're actual urine, human urine samples, and they're not adulterated or they're not, you know, substituted. Somebody didn't try to send in Mountain Dew or something like that instead of urine. So the two things that we've measured here are creatinine, which is a metabolite, or it's just a byproduct of regular protein metabolism. Everybody secretes creatinine in their urine all the time. The amount in the urine that you'll see in the urine will vary a bit depending, like I said, on how much water was present. So if you have a very dilute sample where the creatinine appears to be below 20, so you see the cutoff is 19.999, then that sample would be dilute. And what that would mean is any drugs have also been diluted out that could be present. And so even though it appears to be negative, it might not be negative. It would be hard to interpret. So something that's below 20 would be flagged as dilute. And there are many reasons a sample could be dilute, could be medication, could be disease, could be somebody's purposely trying to be deceptive. We don't make that judgment. We just let the client know that their sample was dilute and they can follow up with them. And then the other thing is the specific gravity, which is also sort of a measure of how dilute the sample is. Water itself is 1.000. So any urine sample should be above 1.000. So if you have a specific gravity that's 1 right on the nose, it's basically water. So someone has again tried to dilute that out somehow. So we have a cutoff of 1.001 is the lowest you would expect a normal sample to be. And then above 1.02, you might be looking at someone who has some kind of dehydration or kidney issues going on.
And with respect to issues like that, do you have any knowledge of either medications or physical conditions that would you just told us how it could generally affect this result, but that would produce the positive results like we see here?
Correct. I mean, well, this sample is normal because the creatinine is 88.9, so that's solidly in the normal range. But if someone is on a medication that's a diuretic, like some blood pressure medications are diuretic, they make you excrete water to keep your blood pressure within a range. Those can make your sample dilute. If you have some kind of liver problems where maybe you're not metabolizing protein properly, you don't produce much creatinine, that could cause it to appear dilute just because you have little creatinine in your system. If you have kidney problems, your kidneys aren't functioning properly because the kidneys are what conserve the water, that could cause an apparent dilute. Typically, if somebody does have those issues or they're on some kind of medication, they've got some kind of medical documentation that they can to give their caseworker so that they would know that a low creatinine is not evidence of any kind of bad behavior.
And so with respect to the actual positive ETG results, are there any conditions that would essentially generate that result outside of the actual consumption of ethanol?
No.
Medications or physical? Okay. And just to be clear, Mr. Brown did not have any suspected dilution in this report.
This one has a normal creatinine, so that's correct.
Okay. I don't have, I want to move to the next report, or did counsel in the court want me to, if had any questions about this particular one first?
Counsel?
I just had, I guess for now, just one specific question. I know we talked about the creatinine quite a bit. I was still just confused on why, or Dr. Glenn, did you just now say like an 89 level? Where do you see that? And I guess why And I'm sorry if you answered that already. Why is the level of the creatinine not listed?
Oh, that's interesting. I'm looking at it on my computer screen and I can see the numbers. Some programs have the numbers printed and some don't. It depends on what the program wants. And I see now that you actually have them turned off. So where you get a report that says level N/A, basically they're just saying that it's normal. I can actually see the number on my report, and my report, the number is 89, which is normal. So, and the specific gravity likewise is in the normal range. So I see that you don't get those, but they are normal.
Okay. I
I'm
don't at
confused
this.
by
I'm
that.
sorry, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm sorry. Didn't
I'm
mean to
still
interrupt.
confused by that too, because it says the cutoff is 19.999, and you're saying the number is 89.
The level is 89. So these reports are generated electronically and they are sent to the clients, and what shows up on the report can be adjusted depending on the programs. So some of the programs have levels reported where you see
No,
N/A.
I understood that. I'm not questioning that part anymore. The 19.999, are you saying it needs to be above or below that number to be normal?
Above that number.
Above that number. Okay, that's where the confusion was. Thank you. All right. So 89 is definitely above 19.999. So if it was below, then it would be diluted.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay. That was the part I needed clarification on. And then as to the specific gravity number, anything below 1.001 means that's just water.
Correct.
And anything above that means what again?
That would be within the normal range for urine. So
Okay.
that is consistent with urine.
So below in the specific gravity would mean that someone's trying to dilute potentially.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all the questions I have for this particular report.
I don't have any further questions. I'm ready to move to the next report. So I am now taking a look at the report that we have dated February 17th of, well, I'm sorry, not the report date, but the collection date of February 17th of 2024. And Dr. Glenn, I realize you are looking at a bit of a different system than we have. So if you need me to send you our version, I'm happy to do that as well.
No, I'm fine. I can see it on your screen.
Oh, that's right. It is posted up there. So I have a few questions, even before we get into the numbers about this report. Number one, I see that there's a note under this for note number 5 that says this collection was unobserved. What does that mean?
So depending again on the program, there's usually somebody observing the person giving the sample, and that person, if it's a male, it would be a male collector observing him giving the sample. If it's a female patient, it'd be a female collector observing them giving the sample. And the reason they do that is sometimes people do try to either bring in, their daughter's urine, or they have some kind of device where they have the clean urine stored in their, on their clothes or something. So if you watch them give the sample, that rules out use of any of those devices. But either sometimes if a collector of the right gender is not available, the collection might be observed. I couldn't say why in this case it was not observed, whether it was that was intentional or whether that just happened that day. They didn't have anybody to do the observation. I don't know, but they're just putting that there in case, I guess, a question arises later on.
Understood. And this probably was a question from Miss Asthorpe that, but unfortunately she's already gone. I can say to the court and counsel that I am happy to send her a follow-up email with that specific issue so that she can advise us on why exactly that would have been the case for this particular test following the hearing. I apologize for not catching that earlier while she was here. Because my other question related to that would also be, she listed several steps related to sort of chain of custody confirmation issues, and I want to verify that Mr. Brown did all the other things such as initial, the seal, and all that for this sample. So I can follow up with her after the hearing and report that answer back to the court. Looking again at this report, now obviously it's much shorter in terms of what's reported here because this is not a confirmation test. This is the initial result, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so the same information that we just reviewed would apply in terms of what the ETG positive number and cutoff represent. Just that we just don't have those other sorts of levels of confirmation there.
That's correct. An immunoassay test is a different type of test than the confirmation assay. So immunoassay tests will sometimes or can give what we call false positives, which means it's picking up something that's not ETG or something like that. So that's why we always recommend that if a case is going to court, it be confirmed, because the LC-MS/MS test is not subject to those. The only false compound in urine that I know of that could give a false positive for ETG is called isopropyl glucuronide, and that is a metabolite of isopropanol, which is rubbing alcohol. So you would really only get that if you're drinking rubbing alcohol. But in theory, again, this is not confirmed, so there is always a possibility that it would be something other than ETG, but there's not many things that are known to do that.
So in cases where people have like I've heard of people drinking hand sanitizer without other access to alcohol, that's something of that nature would have to be what would produce a sort of a false positive here.
Well, hand sanitizer has alcohol in it. So if you drank hand sanitizer, it would be drinking, or ethanol, I should say. It would be drinking ethanol, just not in a very nice way. But
so rubbing alcohol, somehow, I guess you couldn't really ingest too much of that, but that's the only isopropyl alcohol is the only other substance. Let me know if I have that correct. That would generate a positive result. That would not be ethanol.
That's the only other thing the manufacturers have documented, which is, I mean, maybe there's some weird alcohol out there that they haven't tested for, but that's the only common thing that's been documented to do that.
Okay, gotcha. And I don't think I have any further questions about this report.
I don't have any questions, Ms. Muller, your witness. Is she frozen?
Let's see.
Okay, I think it's gonna sign back out. As she signed out, I'm sure she'll sign back in. All right, her Zoom crashed. She's trying to log back in. I think she was frozen again and got kicked off again. She might.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
I apologize. I don't know what happened. I heard
I-
everything up until Ms. McDuffie said she was done with the second report, and my computer just started acting up. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I don't have any questions for this witness. It is on this particular report. It is now your opportunity to question her.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Hi, Dr. Glenn.
Hello.
So I understand that you are a toxicologist, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and you're a toxicologist with Aver Health?
Correct. I've been with AdverHealth since 2013. I was the laboratory director for most of that time, and then fairly recently I moved to Michigan, which is where I'm from, and so we have a new laboratory director on site, and I am a toxicologist, just providing litigation support and things like that.
Okay, I understand. Thanks. And so can you explain to me, and I know you did this a little bit already, but explain to me where you come at in this process when you first see this result, when you become aware of it. Is that once you know that there's going to be a hearing on it, or at what point?
Well, I can review data, I guess when we talked about it a little earlier, when the confirmation data is run, the confirmation assay is run, it's reviewed by 2 or 3 different people before it's released. And I am one of those people who can do that, although I don't do it on a regular basis. So sometimes it might turn out to be from a batch that I myself analyzed.
Okay.
Other than that, it would be when there's a request for hearing, somebody lets our paralegal know that they need testimony, and she'll send me the reports that are going to be introduced, and then I will go ahead and look at the data and look at some of the the case records. All our case records are electronic, so I can log in and look at those, and then just review those before the hearing.
Okay. And specifically with ETG testing, it sounds like from what you testified, it's very unlikely that there's a false positive. Is that right?
For immunoassays, yeah. For immunoassays, it's possible, but it's not at all common because, again, the only documented thing really would be rubbing alcohol, and drinking that is not common because it's pretty toxic. So as far as the confirmation goes, yes, ETG false positives are virtually unheard of by the confirmation method.
So really the substance that we're looking for with is ethanol. That's what's being measured.
A metabolite of it.
Okay. And that